You might think electric motorcycles are new, that they showed up in the last decade or two like some futuristic alternative to gasoline bikes. You're wrong. Electric two-wheelers have been around for over a century. They dominated cities in the early 1900s, then vanished for almost 100 years. Now they're back. So, electric motorcycles. But why? Back in the 1800s, when horses still powered most transportation and steam engines were cutting-edge technology, inventors were already experimenting with electric carriages. Scottish inventor Robert Anderson built a rudimentary electric carriage in the 1830s, decades before the internal combustion engine became practical. By the late 1800s and early 1900s, electric vehicles, including two-wheelers, were rolling through city streets alongside steam-powered and gasoline alternatives. Then they disappeared. For most of the 20th century, electric motorcycles existed only as curiosities and experiments, while gasoline engines dominated completely. The reasons for that disappearance mirror exactly what's happening in 2026. Electric vehicles work brilliantly in certain contexts and struggle in others. Cities loved them for short trips and quiet operation. Long-distance riders couldn't make them work. Sound familiar? Here's the reality that cuts through all the marketing noise and online debates. Electric motorcycles are exceptional at short, high-torque riding and awkward at long, high-speed riding. Almost every argument, pro or con, is just a remix of that fundamental truth. Understanding why that matters, where it matters, and what it means for the industry requires looking past the hype and examining what's actually happening on the ground in 2026. The global electric motorcycle market sits at roughly $52 billion in 2025, with projections pushing that to $145 billion by 2031. But here's what makes those numbers interesting. Most of that growth isn't happening where motorcycle culture lives loudest. It's happening in scooters, commuters, and delivery fleets, the segments that treat two-wheelers like appliances rather than identity markers. The question becomes why electrification dominates in some motorcycle categories and struggles in others. And the answer reveals something fundamental about what motorcycles actually are and who they serve. Electric two-wheelers existed for decades as experiments and curiosities, but modern public awareness tends to spike in waves, each one bringing electric motorcycles closer to mainstream conversation. The mid-2000s saw early serious commercial attempts. The Vectrix VX1 launched in 2006 as a high-performance electric scooter. It helped prove the concept, even if the business outcomes were messy. The idea that an electric two-wheeler could be more than a toy started taking shape. The 2010s brought purpose-built motorcycle brands, not conversions of gasoline bikes, not science projects, actual companies designing electric motorcycles from scratch. Zero Motorcycles became the name most people encountered first. Their bikes looked like motorcycles, performed like motorcycles, cost like motorcycles. The normalization process began. 2019 marked a turning point. Harley-Davidson launched the Livewire. This mattered enormously, not because the bike was perfect, but because Harley-Davidson is Harley-Davidson. Traditional riders who'd never considered an electric bike suddenly had to form an opinion. Motorcycle media that ignored electric startups couldn't ignore Harley. The company emphasized range and fast charging capability in press materials. The bike got into showrooms. Real riders could test them. The quiet truth of the 2020s. Electrification is dominating scooters and small displacement equivalents far more than big motorcycles. While premium electric bikes generate headlines, the actual volume happens in commuter segments. Vietnam's plans for a phased ban on fossil fuel motorcycles in major cities by mid-2026 illustrate broader regulatory shifts. Cities across Asia and Europe are pushing electric two-wheelers through incentives, infrastructure investment, and eventually mandates. 2024 provided a reality check. Energica, a premium Italian electric motorcycle manufacturer, entered bankruptcy liquidation. The company built genuinely impressive bikes, high performance, beautiful design, competitive specs. The business model still failed. Premium electric motorcycles remain a hard sell when gasoline alternatives cost less and offer more practical range. It didn't fail. They just mostly succeeded where motorcycles are used like appliances, not where bikes are used like identity. Electric motorcycles aren't one category. There are at least three distinct markets, pretending to be one conversation. Understanding the difference matters. First, utility two-wheelers, which include scooters, delivery bikes, and last-mile transportation that dominate global sales volume. The International Energy Agency notes that two- and three-wheelers represent the most electrified road vehicle segment worldwide, with sales share hovering around 15% globally and heavily influenced by China's market dynamics. These bikes get used like tools for daily commutes, food delivery, and ride-hailing, where performance matters less than reliability and operating cost. Second, premium street motorcycles, where brands like Zero, Livewire, and Energica compete. These bikes cost as much as or more than gasoline equivalents and target enthusiasts who want the motorcycle experience but with electric propulsion. This segment gets the media attention, but it also gets the business failures, with Energica entering bankruptcy liquidation in 2024, becoming the headline example of how brutal this market can be. Third, off-road and specialty bikes like motocross, trail riding, and track days, where electric motorcycles excel in specific ways through instant torque, customizable power delivery, and silent operation for noise-sensitive areas. The constraints that hurt street bikes, like limited range, matter less when a session lasts 90 minutes and ends back at the truck. These three markets have completely different success metrics. A delivery scooter that saves money on fuel and maintenance over 3 years is a win. A premium electric sport bike that costs $40,000 and struggles on weekend touring rides is a tough sell. An electric motocross bike that lets riders practice without noise complaints is brilliant. Same technology, completely different outcomes. The question, are electric motorcycles good? Doesn't have a single answer. It has three answers, and they contradict each other. The global electric motorcycle story is actually an electric scooter and commuter bike story, and the numbers tell it clearly. Two-wheelers represent the most electrified road vehicle segment globally, not cars, not trucks. Sales share sits around 15% worldwide, with massive concentration in China, India, and Southeast Asian markets, where these bikes dominate urban transportation. These aren't lifestyle purchases, but economic decisions. Delivery companies switch fleets to electric scooters because fuel and maintenance costs drop significantly. Ride-hailing drivers choose electric bikes because operating margins improve. The value proposition is straightforward. Electric scooters and commuter bikes cost more upfront but eliminate fuel costs almost entirely, with maintenance dropping to just tires, brakes, and occasional battery service instead of constant oil changes, valve adjustments, and clutch replacements. For high-mileage commercial use, the math works decisively. Urban planning accelerates adoption. Cities serious about emissions reduction offer tax breaks, subsidies, priority parking, and access to restricted zones. Some go further with planned bans on fossil fuel two-wheelers entirely, with Vietnam phasing out combustion motorcycles in major urban centers representing the regulatory future. The result: electric two-wheelers quietly dominate segments where motorcycles serve as practical transportation rather than recreational vehicles. Food delivery across Asian cities, last-mile logistics in European urban centers, commuter traffic in congested metros. This isn't the sexy part of the motorcycle market, it's the volume part. The success is real. It's just not happening where motorcycle culture pays the most attention. Now, why premium electric motorcycles struggle? Not because the technology doesn't work. It does. Not because the bikes aren't good. Some are excellent. They struggle because motorcycles are discretionary purchases, and electric bikes currently lose on the metrics that matter most to discretionary buyers. Energica's bankruptcy tells the story cleanly. The Italian manufacturer built bikes that competed directly with high-performance gasoline motorcycles, with the ego claiming impressive specs like 0 to 60 in under 3 seconds, top speed over 150 miles per hour, claimed range of 250 miles in city riding, and beautiful Italian design with quality components throughout. The business failed anyway because premium motorcycles are want purchases, not need purchases. And when someone drops $20,000 to $40,000 on a bike, they're buying an experience, a lifestyle, and an identity marker that electric powertrains fundamentally change. Price sensitivity becomes brutal in discretionary markets. Gas bikes offer more range, faster refueling, established service networks, and proven resale values. Electric bikes cost more upfront, offer limited range under real-world conditions, require planning around charging infrastructure, and depreciate faster due to battery degradation concerns and brand risk. Livewire represents Harley-Davidson's premium electric effort with strong performance, DC fast charging capability on some models, and heritage brand backing. But even with Harley's name behind it, the bike remains niche, with sales numbers staying small compared to Harley's gasoline lineup. The company eventually spun Livewire into a separate brand, distancing it from the core Harley identity. Zero Motorcycles survives as the longest-running electric motorcycle company still operating, having iterated through multiple model generations, expanded the lineup from street to adventure variants, improved range and charging, and built a dealer network. Yet Zero remains a small player by motorcycle industry standards, with enthusiasts who buy Zero bikes loving them, but mainstream rider conversion staying difficult. The challenge compounds with infrastructure. DC fast charging sounds great until riders realize their city has numerous level 2 stations, but few compatible DC fast chargers near typical routes. The business model struggle reflects a deeper reality. Premium electric motorcycles compete in a market segment where the disadvantages of electric propulsion matter most and the advantages matter least. Long distance capability? Gas wins. Weekend touring? Gas wins. Resale value? Gas wins. The performance advantages of electric, instant torque, and smooth power delivery aren't enough to overcome these practical limitations for most buyers. Understanding electric motorcycles requires understanding what the technology actually does well and where it falls apart. Instant torque and smooth power delivery represent the core advantages, where twisting the throttle delivers immediate response without clutch engagement, gear selection, or waiting for RPMs to build, with the motor delivering peak torque from zero. This transforms urban riding by making stop-and-go traffic effortless. Acceleration from intersections feel immediate and powerful, and the learning curve flattened dramatically for new riders. Lower routine maintenance follows from fewer moving parts, eliminating oil changes, valve adjustments, and clutch cables, while often using belt drive instead of chains to eliminate cleaning and lubrication, with regenerative braking reducing brake wear. For daily riders, this translates to lower ongoing costs and less time in the shop. Heat management in cities matters more than people expect because gasoline engines generate enormous heat that radiates directly into the rider when sitting in traffic on hot days, while electric motors run cooler and make the difference obvious during summer commuting. The stealth factor changes living situations by allowing early departures for work without waking the household, late returns without disturbing neighbors, and practice in noise-sensitive areas, making silent operation a genuine quality of life improvement for some riders. But the disadvantages cut deep in specific scenarios. Highway range collapses faster than city range because manufacturers quote city numbers that look impressive, where a bike might claim 170 miles in city riding, but see that range drop to 90 or 100 miles on the highway at sustained 70 miles per hour. Aerodynamic drag increases with speed squared. Electric motors become less efficient at constant high-speed operation, and the gap between claimed range and real-world highway range frustrates buyers who didn't understand the difference. Charging infrastructure remains confusing in practice, with J1772 adapters, CCS fast charging, and Type 2 variants, creating compatibility issues that don't show up in spec sheets. A station might physically accept a bike but charge at slow speeds because the communication protocols don't match properly. Or a DC fast charger location has broken equipment and no backup. Gasoline infrastructure is ubiquitous and standardized, while electric charging requires planning and backup plans. Charging time creates lifestyle friction beyond just minutes, where even fast charging takes 30 to 45 minutes to reach 80% capacity. That's acceptable for meal breaks on long rides, but unacceptable for spontaneous weekend trips, and that assumes fast charging works at all. Level 2 charging can take 4 to 8 hours depending on battery size and charger output, which works fine for overnight home charging, but doesn't work for multi-day touring. Battery degradation affects long-term value because lithium-ion batteries lose capacity over time and charge cycles, where a 5-year-old electric motorcycle might have 75 or 80% of its original range. That degradation impacts resale value significantly, as buyers factor in eventual battery replacement costs, which can run $5,000 to $10,000 depending on the model. Brand risk amplifies depreciation concerns. When Energica liquidated, existing owners faced uncertainty about parts availability and support, causing resale values for Energica bikes to drop sharply. Smaller manufacturers, even if currently healthy, carry this risk and make buyers worry about long-term ownership with brands that might not survive. Temperature sensitivity affects performance. Cold weather reduces battery capacity and range noticeably. Hot weather can trigger thermal management systems that limit charging speed or power output. Gasoline bikes perform consistently across temperature ranges. Electric bikes show more variation. The technology works brilliantly within specific constraints. Urban commuting, short recreational rides, track days, motocross sessions. Anywhere the limitations don't matter and the advantages shine. Push outside those constraints, and the compromises become obvious. The electric motorcycle market in 2026 tells two different stories depending on which numbers get examined. Global market size, roughly $52 billion in 2025, projected to reach $145 billion by 2031. Investment follows those projections, with manufacturers betting on continued expansion. But regional dynamics show concentration. North America expects growth rates around 27%, though that growth skews heavily toward urban mobility and commercial fleets rather than individual enthusiast purchases. Technology announcements signal ambition. Verge Motorcycles claimed at CES 2026 that solid-state battery technology could deliver up to 370 miles of range with 10-minute charging times. Those numbers would fundamentally change the value proposition, but announcements aren't shipping products. Solid-state batteries have been 5 years away for a decade. Meanwhile, mainstream manufacturers show cautious interest. When Kawasaki introduced the Ninja E1 and ZE1 with removable batteries and commuter-focused performance, keeping top speed limited and targeting urban riders explicitly, that revealed what the industry thinks electric motorcycles are for right now. The data supports a clear conclusion. Electric motorcycles are growing rapidly in segments where they solve economic problems, and slowly in segments where they compete on lifestyle and identity. Electric motorcycles make sense in specific contexts, and understanding those contexts clarifies the entire market. Urban commuting represents the strongest use case. Daily rides under 40 miles with consistent routes and home charging access, where stop-and-go traffic makes instant torque, shine, and range, doesn't matter when daily mileage stays well below battery capacity. Delivery and commercial fleets amplify those advantages, with high daily mileage making fuel savings meaningful and predictable routes, allowing charging infrastructure optimization. Off-road and motocross present a completely different value proposition. Electric bikes excel where range doesn't matter, and other factors dominate, with motocross tracks and trail systems often having noise restrictions that electric bikes eliminate entirely. Instant torque provides control advantages in technical terrain, and customizable power delivery allows riders to tune bikes precisely for conditions. Track days benefit similarly, where electric bikes provide full performance without noise complaints, and riders can practice early mornings or late evenings without restrictions. Sport touring and weekend riding expose weaknesses. Multiple charging stops required, uncertainty about charger availability, time lost waiting for batteries to charge, and cold weather reducing range, all combine to make the experience shift from ride when you want to ride when the battery allows. Long-distance adventure touring amplifies these problems, where remote areas lack charging infrastructure and route planning becomes dominated by charge point locations rather than scenic roads. The pattern becomes clear. Electric motorcycles succeed when constraints don't matter and advantages align with actual use, but struggle when constraints interfere with desired experiences. Range anxiety gets discussed constantly, but infrastructure confusion causes more real-world frustration. Charging standards multiply with J1772 connectors, CCS combo, fast charging, CHAdeMO in some markets, and Type 2 variations in Europe, where physical compatibility doesn't guarantee functional charging. A motorcycle might physically plug into a station but charge at unexpectedly slow speeds because protocols don't match properly, or the station might be configured for automotive use and not communicate with motorcycle systems correctly. Network coverage varies dramatically by region. Urban areas have decent infrastructure, while suburban and rural areas remain spotty, with popular motorcycle routes through mountains or coasts often lacking charging stations entirely. DC fast charging provides the fastest charging at 30 to 45 minutes to 80%. But these networks remain sparse and not all electric motorcycles support them. Station reliability remains inconsistent with broken chargers, payment system failures, and network outages, creating situations where arriving at a planned charging stop with non-functional equipment forces route changes and delays. The motorcycle-specific challenge: where to park while charging, since automotive charging spots designed for cars don't accommodate two-wheelers well. The fundamental issue is that electric bikes depend on infrastructure that's still maturing, while gas bikes depend on infrastructure that's been mature for decades, creating friction that specs and technology can't solve. Motorcycles are discretionary purchases, which makes identity matter enormously, and electric propulsion changes what riders brag about. Internal combustion culture celebrates engine note, displacement, exhaust systems, and mechanical character. The sound a Harley makes, the scream of an inline-4 at redline, the thump of a single cylinder. These become identity markers that riders bond over. Electric motorcycles eliminate those markers entirely. Instant torque replaces engine note, smoothness replaces character, technology specs replace displacement. Electric riders talk about efficiency, smartphone integration, and silent operation instead of visceral experience. Some riders embrace that shift. Others reject it entirely because for them, the engine is the soul, and electric motors feel like appliances. The objection isn't rational, it's emotional, and in discretionary purchases, emotion matters more than logic. This identity clash drives the culture war around electric motorcycles, where debates aren't about specs, but about what motorcycles fundamentally are. When a significant portion of the market emotionally rejects electric propulsion regardless of practical advantages, the addressable market shrinks. Electric motorcycles compete for a subset of riders, not the entire market, and that's a business problem with no technical solution. Electric scooters and commuter bikes work now with millions in use globally, where economics favor them for high-mileage urban applications, and infrastructure exists where they operate. Electric motorcycles for controlled environments like track days, motocross practice, and trail riding work in noise-sensitive areas where limitations don't matter and advantages shine. Premium electric motorcycles work for specific riders with short daily commutes, no touring expectations, home charging, and secondary gas bikes for long trips. This market exists, but remains smaller than projections assume. What doesn't work reliably yet? Electric motorcycles as primary bikes for riders who tour, live in areas with sparse charging, buy bikes for emotional reasons, or can't afford premium pricing. That's still a large portion of the market. The technology improves yearly, but the timeline for achieving true parity with gasoline bikes across all use cases remains measured in years, possibly decades. Solid-state battery promises could change calculations dramatically, but announcements aren't shipping products. The current reality: electric motorcycles work brilliantly within specific constraints. Understand those constraints, evaluate whether they matter for intended use, and make decisions accordingly. Buy for today's reality, not tomorrow's potential. Electric motorcycles aren't good or bad, they're context-dependent. They succeed where strengths matter and weaknesses don't, and struggle where the inverse applies. Daily urban commuting? Electric makes sense. Weekend touring? Gas still wins. Track days with noise restrictions? Electric excels. Cross-country adventure? Gas remains practical. The technology solves certain problems exceptionally well, but doesn't solve all problems equally. Market growth projections reflect reality in scooters and commercial applications, but reflect optimism in premium enthusiast segments. Time will show whether that optimism proves justified. What's your take? Are electric motorcycles finally ready for your riding style, or are they still too compromised? Drop your thoughts in the comments. And if someone you know keeps asking whether they should go electric, share this breakdown. Sometimes the answer is yes. Sometimes it's not yet. Understanding why makes the difference. Thanks for watching, and see you in the next one.